Are our instincts a connection to pure consciousness? Should we live by instinct? Well, first of all, you have to define what is instinct. When you say instinct, I'm thinking of a definition is a feeling by intuition. I think that's what instinct is all about. In other words, you intuitively think about something, and give an example. If you come across a person and that person is so ferocious in the face, if that person is so, he's a bad guy. He always wants to harm. He always wants to harass people, and you have an instinct that you don't want to walk close to him because this guy is not that friendly. So that's your instinct. Your instinct could be wrong, though. Your instinct could be wrong. Your instinct could be right. Your instinct could be neutral. But assuming though your instinct is right, so you have intuitively a thinking that that guy is bad. So that's what we call by an instinct. Now, how is that instinct connected to pure consciousness? What do you mean by pure consciousness? Consciousness is never pure, but a definition of purity. When your consciousness is absolutely pure, you already have transformed your consciousness into nirvana, into the highest form of wisdom. So our consciousness has always not been pure. So how is an instinct connected to consciousness? Where does your instinct come from? Where does your intuition come from? Your instinct, your intuition, all come from the mind. If you don't have a mind, do you have instinct? If you don't have a mind, do you have intuition? So all is related to your mind, right? So how can an instinct not be related to consciousness if consciousness is nothing but your mind? So when you say our instincts, a connection to our pure consciousness, yes, instinct is definitely connected or even originates from consciousness. But is your instinct directly related to pure consciousness? When I say pure, is already different. When you say pure consciousness, that is a consciousness that is not tainted. There's a consciousness that is not impure. When your consciousness becomes so pure that it has already been transformed into the highest form of prajna wisdom, then you wouldn't have any, we don't call it instinct anymore. It's a direct understanding. So when that guy comes by, he's a bad guy, he's going to harm you, you already know that guy will harm you, then you will walk away from him. Or even you will educate that guy, and you will try your best to move him in the right direction in his life. So that becomes a pure consciousness originates into, or a pure consciousness gives rise to supernatural instinct. So all that has to do with the mind. So just to put these questions into very simple answer is yes, your instinct is connected to consciousness. Should we live by instinct? I don't think we should live by instinct. Your instinct could be wrong. Don't judge a person by his appearance. He appeared to be a bad guy, but actually he's quite kind-hearted. Never judge a person by his appearance alone. Of course, appearance can tell you something, but I said alone. Never judge a person by appearance alone. You have to judge that person, if you want to judge that person, by appearance, by the way he talks, by his education, by his background, by so many things that I can't even limit to what I'm going to tell you. So, should we live by instinct? Depends on what kind of instinct you have. If it is a wrong kind of instinct, it's a selfish kind of instinct, it's an angry kind of instinct, greedy instinct, jealousy instinct, depression instinct, throw them away. You don't need those instincts. Those are garbages. Have we not known that before we meditate, we have to put all our emotional and passion garbages into that garbage bag and toss it out? We want to toss out the garbage before you meditate. So how come you include all your instinct in your garbage? Throw away your instinct. if it is the wrong kind. And sometimes your instinct could be good. It depends on what kind of instinct. There's no one answer to that question. All right? So are you satisfied with the answer? Or you want to supplement anything to it? Raise your hands. So you are satisfied. That's good. Next. Venerable, could you share with us your personal story of how that Guan Yin temple come into being? Who are the two gracious benefactors of this International Buddhist Temple? So if you want me to tell you the history of how the Guan Yin temple is built, I think we need about 6 hours. So I don't attempt to use 6 hours in here. But I can tell you that we've gone through 35 years of history in building this temple. And we started in 1980 when I first came from Toronto to Vancouver. I came with an inherent mission to build a temple. At that time, there wasn't any temple, any temple around. There was just a modified church, being modified into a temple. So I thought, well, we can build a temple. So I started with my family in 1980. And at that time, I wasn't a monk. I was just a layman. And it's my in-laws, my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, who donated the land. And they also donated a sum of $300,000 at that time. So with the $300,000, I started to build this temple. And it was a piece of dirt, agricultural land, and I've been trying very hard to let it come into being. And as I said, it takes more than 6 hours to tell you the whole story. And we will encounter a lot of difficulties, and one of the many difficulties is the difficulty with the government and with the neighbors. Because in Canada, in North America, we all know that if we want to do anything, we have to go through debate, we have to go through approval by your neighbors, we have to go through a lot of hearings in the council. And I went through a lot of hearings. And I had to go right to the center of this forum where I have 12 council members shooting questions at me. What do you want to do this? What's the purpose behind all this? How can you convert agricultural land into a zone, public use purposes? What do you intend to do? What's the background? All kinds of questions. And I wasn't successful in many hearings, and eventually I became successful with unanimous approval from the council members in Richmond. We have a unanimous approval after so many hearings, after lots of difficulties. And then afterwards, I started to get an architect. I started to design it with the architect, because an architect did not know how to design an ancient Chinese temple. We really have to throw in a lot of opinions on it. I went to China to study it, research on how to do it, and I worked in conjunction with the knowledge of the architect and get it into being. Oh, it's so difficult. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to tell it to you. I need to write something out, but I haven't got time to write something out to tell about the whole story of this temple. And if I go back to earlier years, even before I came to Vancouver, there's a lot of, I don't know what to say, a lot of deja vus. You know what deja vus are? A lot of deja vus in my story, and a lot of I don't know what I can tell you. Maybe I can tell you one deja vu that I have. Okay. When I was 21, 22 years old, I was studying at University of Toronto, and that's my first year. And being a first-year student, I came to Canada for the first year. I didn't know. I was not used to Canadian weather, the food, and the people at that time. I couldn't speak English properly. If you're off campus, you usually rent a room from a Chinese family, And I still remember the room that I rent. I rent from Darcy Street, near the St. George's campus in the University of Toronto. And in the basement of an old couple, a Chinese couple, and I still remember the rent we pay, $25 per month for a room. And then we have 6 students sharing 6 rooms with a common kitchen. So I thought, wow, it's too crowded. So I later decided to get into a temple. So I was able to get a room in the basement of a temple in Don Mills. You know what Don Mills is? Who came from Toronto? Nobody came from Toronto. You don't know what I'm talking about. In Don Mills. So I got a room in there.
Well, I've lived there.
Huh?
I've lived there, so I know where it is.
You know where it is. Lawrence and Don Mills. You know Don Mills? Yeah. And so I was staying in the basement, and the 2 monks staying up on the ground floor. So I learned all the chanting from them. I stayed with them for 1 year, and they taught me all the ancient chanting, the Chinese chanting. So I learned when I was 22 years old. I already learned a lot from them, and then my mind was so quiet, staying in the temple, that I want to make the story very short. That one night I had a dream when I was staying in the basement. I was dreaming that I was climbing up a huge architectural building with the metal stairs in the middle. With the metal stairs, I was climbing up, coming down, coming down up the stairs. And that's a very, very tall building. And I didn't know why. I was climbing up a building, coming down, coming down again. And unexpectedly, quite inconceivably, I had the same dream for 7 nights. How would anybody have the same dreams in 7 nights? Usually I had a dream and you finished with that dream and go into another dream, right? But I had the same kind of dream every night that I was climbing up the stair and going down the stair, climbing up and going down. Oh, what kind of dream is that? But I just forgot about that dream later. And then, okay. And then after so many years, after about, say, 10 years later, I make the story short, I came to Vancouver and started to build this temple. And building the temple, the most complicated part of the construction is you really have to build the roof tiles. You see the porcelain roof tiles? All these roof tiles were from Beijing, porcelain tiles. So I first ordered I didn't know the Beijing tiles roof tiles would be more suitable than anywhere else, because Beijing was subject to cold weather and sandstorm. So I ordered roof tiles from Taiwan. And Taiwan had 2 installers coming over, and we install, and I worked on the roof with them for a month and a half. Work on the roof. So actually, I became a roof tile layers. I worked with them. We started at 6 o'clock in the morning and finished until 9 in the summertime. And then after we finish certain sections of the roof tiles, we have to come down and see, is it straight? Is it in line? Is it uniform? And when we were laying the roof tiles, we'll put stairs in the middle of the building. And then I went up the stair, go up the stair, and then I started to see, is it in alignment? And suddenly I remember, 10 years ago, I had the same dream of climbing up the stair, climbing down the stairs. So that means 10 years ago, if I was smart, I should have known that I would be building a temple going up and downstairs. But who knows 10 years ago? Would you know what you were going to do 10 years later? You don't know. But I didn't know until after 10 years, then I recollect on my past dream that I was supposed to be doing this. Okay, so I don't know what else I can tell you. As I said, I need 6 hours. So that's it. A lot of difficulties.